perfect 22-0 record head to Indiana Tuesday and face arguably the second hottest player in the NBA right now, Paul George. According to Elias, Paul George and Steph Curry are the only two players in NBA history to average at least 30 points and 4 3-pointers over a 15-game span. Stephen A., will Golden State's streak end tonight?
It's a tough call because obviously if I had to bet my money, I would not bet against the Warriors because they look absolutely sensational and mesmerizing, and Steph Curry is clearly the league MVP right now. He's nothing short of sensational, and over the first 22 games of this season, as I have said continuously, he's the best player on the planet. It's just that simple. But if there is a team, Skip, that has the potential to knock them off, it would be that of the Indiana Pacers, because Roy Hibbert is no longer on this squad. They actually have the ability to go small. And Paul George is back. I have watched this guy this season, Skip. He's averaging a shade under 28 a game. He's shooting 45% from three-point range. And the one thing we all need not forget about him, Skip, is that he can defend. He can defend multiple positions. He can defend Steph Curry 1 minute, Klay Thompson the next, or somebody else. He is more than capable of doing that. C.J. Miles is a good three-point shooter, shooting better than 40% from the field. Monte Ellis, if you've watched him over the years, this is the kind of game, Skip, that he'll step up. When you talk about, you want to get Monte Ellis stirred up, it's the kind of game, Skip, where you don't expect much defense. Even though Indiana plays good defense, they're one of the top 10 defenses in the league. They do believe in defending. Frank Vogel's doing an outstanding job with them this year. The reality is that Monte Ellis loves a game that's up-tempo, where it's you against me. Oh, it's like that. Let's get it on. Monte Ellis lives for a game like this. So when you've got scorers and shooters like the C.J. Miles and the Monte Ellises of the world to join with Paul George, when you got a guy who could put up some points in George Hill, who's shooting better than 40% from threes himself, all right? And then you got a guy like Jordan Hill, who's interchangeable at the 4 or the 5 spot, active, runs up and down the court, but a big enough body to get rebounds and to offset some of the stuff that Draymond Green, who's playing sensational basketball himself, is going to throw at you. It can be very interesting. If I had to bet my money, I wouldn't bet against the Warriors because they just look too prolific, and it seems like it's destiny that a collision course is in the making for them to go undefeated into Christmas Day against LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers. But if they could potentially get knocked off before then, I had 2 games on my mind. When they go to Dallas later on, in this game tonight in Indy, I think the Pacers can beat them, and I'm going to say to you right now, it will require Paul George dropping plus 40. But if he can do that, the Pacers can beat the Warriors. I'm going to just go out on a limb, and I'm going to predict that the Pacers might steal the show tonight and win this game. Okay.
I admire that. I appreciate that. Do you think it could go in the hundreds for both teams?
Easily. I mean, you got to remember, I expect, don't get me wrong, Indy can defend, but I think they're going to defend in spots, like just playing staunch, rabid defense all game long. Golden State plays at too much of a pace. They've got like the 4th fastest pace in the game, if I remember correctly. Their pace is too great for you to sustain the same level of defensive intensity throughout the game. I think there will be key moments when they'll amp it up, but they won't be able to sustain that. And if Paul George gets hot, neither will Golden State against them. It's going to take Paul George dropping 35 or 40, but he can do it. And I think tonight is one of those nights where he just might.
Okay, I agree with every point you made except the final one. I think Golden State will win this game. I'll go out on a limb. 106-100. I think it'll be close with 2 minutes to go. It will be a carbon copy of the game I watched Saturday. It pulled me away from my college football because it got so good in the end. I don't know if you saw any of Golden State at Toronto.
Yes, I did. With Kyle Lowry.
Yep. Toronto's a little better than Indiana is, just a little better. And at home, they are really tough. And that game was winnable for Toronto with a couple of minutes to go. And all of a sudden, they got Stephed. This man is unbelievable. I know we've run out of superlatives here, but he Stepped them. He hit 2 huge late threes at Toronto. Then he made 4 straight cold-blooded free throws, and we know he rarely misses those. And all of a sudden, I look up, and they survived, all because of the reigning MVP, who is now running away with back-to-back MVPs. So now back to Paul George. Completely with you. I've watched him a lot. Paul George is back to full throttle Paul George. He might have even taken it up a little bit because he's so hot-handed from the three-point line right now. He's shooting 45.4%, which is Steph-like from 3. This team, Indiana, is like a poor man's Golden State. I agree with you. They can play small, except they don't have Steph Curry. So it's close but no cigar in this one because they're still vulnerable, Indiana. I remind you, they had won 6 in a row, and then on their West Coast swing, they just lost their last 2 games. At Portland, the guy who's shooting threes like Steph went 0 for 9. Paul George went 0 for 9 from 3 at Portland, and they lost badly. Then they lost in overtime at Utah despite 48 points from Paul George. So, again, you could be right. He could go for 48 tonight, and they would lose narrowly to Steph, because I figure if Paul George goes for 48, Steph just might go for 50, because this might be the kind of game where Luke Walton just says, Steph, just do your thing. Just have fun. Yeah. Let's just shoot it out here. Let's just see what happens. I may be a little low on the score, but I think both teams play such good defense that it'll be just over 100.
I'm thinking more of the lines of 110, 105 or 110, 107, something along those lines. And again, if I had to bet my money, it would be on the Warriors. I'm just picking the Pacers tonight because I'm thinking one of these 3 games they're going to lose. At Indiana tonight, against Cleveland on Christmas Day, or at Dallas on December 28th, because somehow, some way, I just consider Rick Carlisle to be such a great coach that he kind of figures out a way to stymie you at times when you least expect it, because that's what great coaches do. But obviously, I would give them lesser of a chance than Indiana and Cleveland. It was one of these games that I said Golden State had a chance of losing. I think they have a chance of losing tonight. I don't, even though I love what I'm seeing Brad Stevens do in Boston.
I do too.
I agree. I can't rave enough about the job he's doing and about the job Danny Ainge is doing. Danny Ainge has done a hell of a job as an executive for Boston not to fall completely off the map while stockpiling draft picks and maintaining a level of respectability. The Philadelphia 76ers could take some notes from him, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay.
But I just think that the Boston, Milwaukee, you stuff like that, I don't see one of those teams knocking off Golden State. It's going to happen tonight or Christmas Day against Cleveland. Otherwise, Golden State's going to go into the new year in all likelihood undefeated. Okay, a point in your favor. You realize Harrison Barnes is out for this trip with a bad ankle. Harrison Barnes would be a primary defender, I think, on Paul George. So they're down a primary defender. But Iguodala, but remember, Iguodala is one hell of a defender.
But now you make him play high minutes. You're going to have to. He can't.
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the whole point. I can see, and listen, you're not going to score 40 on Iguodala manning up, or Klay Thompson for that matter, because they can both defend. I just think that in a game like this, on their home turf, don't be surprised if Paul George is getting a lot of calls in his favor. And remember, he's a legit 6'7". It's not like he's 6'3", and you got a big body on him. He's 6'7". So he can beat you inside or outside, and that's going to be tough for them to deal with.
My final reason that I like Golden State tonight is they now get 2 days off after this game, and then they go back-to-back at Boston and then at Milwaukee. I give Boston a little better shot of pulling this off than I give Indiana, because Boston, listen, I watched them against my Spurs the other night, and San Antonio gave them all they wanted. That team is deep, it's loaded, it can shoot threes. It might be interesting because at some point Golden State will just wear out and have an off game on this trip. Maybe it's tonight, maybe it's Friday or Saturday night.
I would agree with you if Golden State didn't have the 2 games before, the 2 days rest before playing Boston. And Boston was the second game of the back-to-back. The fact that they're the first game leads me to believe that they're not going to be able to do that.
We'll be watching.
Yes, we will. Vegas has the Warriors at 5.5-point favorites. Paul George on this game tonight, as good as it gets until April and May. It's going to be fun for sure. Up next, we head back to the NFL. Johnny Manziel gets the nod again. Manziel will start when the Niners come to town. We'll discuss his future after the break. The coach, Herm Edwards, is in the house. He'll join that discussion next.